I thought I'd do a little video and show some of the things I've been doing during the quarantine to keep me sane. So, I have a 3D printer. It's over there. I don't know if you can see it very well. It's in an enclosure. It's an Ender 3 Pro, recently upgraded from an old PrinterBot Plus laser cut off of Kickstarter. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. It prints really great quality by comparison to that old PrinterBot. So just gonna go through some of the pieces here that I've been doing. This is a stand for a tablet, presumably for an iPod or an iPad or an iPhone if you would like to use it as iPhone. It also works. It's pretty generic. It's just a standard channel. It's about finger width thick. Could be used with cases. The little channel here, I'm not sure what that cutout's for. The little logo is the person who designed it on Thingiverse. A lot of people self-brand their items. It's got a little pencil holder there, stand, I suppose, if you wanted to put a pencil in there as well. You could do such a thing. I like it. It's, pretty effective at holding a tablet. The pencil does actually fit in the back. It doesn't really want to stand. I don't know if maybe it was made for a Gen 2 pencil. I think the Gen 2s are slightly slimmer. So that's probably what it was designed for. Doesn't really bother me. I've got this connector on the side of my tablet. Works fine. It's deep enough and wide enough. It's sturdy as all get out when you use it. And it works for portrait mode as well. You don't have to really worry about tipping it over. So, I really like it. I've printed a couple of these now. I'll try to keep one on every floor. That way I've got something to set my tablet or my phone on. And I don't keep losing it in the couch. Which, in these trying times when you're just sitting on the couch during quarantine is a big problem. So this is coming in handy. I also printed some of these. These are 12 volt lithium ion battery mounts for DeWalt batteries. They are wall mountable, or I suppose you could call it surface mountable. It's tailor-made to be specifically for the 12 volts. It does have the retention lock in there so that it does lock as a keeper and does not slide off the battery. I have a couple here. That's what it looks like fully engaged with the battery. It does not want to come off. I am a little concerned about the clearance on the yellow tab and the back of the print itself. I think this could have been thicker for my own personal liking. I think once you get this, if you got this on a wall or a surface, getting your finger back in there to depress that and pull that out might be difficult, especially if you've got larger fingers. But I like that because you could mount it in any direction. If you want to mount them sideways, you want to mount them upside down for that matter. It's easier to pull them out. I like it. So, I printed like 5 of them because I've got 5 batteries. And I like that they're little branding on there too. It's a kind of a nice touch. Not that you'll really ever see it if they're all populated. This one is for slightly larger battery. This is also for a DeWalt, but this is for multiple batteries. It'll fit a 12 volt, a 20 volt max, or a 60 volt max, according to the site. It does not have a retention clip in it like these do, presumably because it's made to fit multiple sizes. So this does have to be mounted vertically with gravity to hold it in, versus this, which obviously any direction. Yeah, I've got some 12 volt batteries to show that it does actually fit the 12 volt size. Hangs in there just fine. But again, it is loose. So you wouldn't want to put that on a toolbox and a side of a toolbox in a bed of your truck or something, I would imagine that would bounce out. But the 20-volt battery does also fit in there just fine into the larger section of it. I don't have a 60 volt battery to test with, but I have no reason to believe that it would not fit. It does look like there's plenty of room, even with the 20 volt max in there, for it to fit. So that's that. And then a friend of mine asked me to print some Milwaukee versions for his M18 batteries. So I printed these. These I consider failures. These were all printed at 2/10 of a millimeter layer height. I used support materials, so that's what you see the pegs in there and the wisps that come off of there. I print with a brim on my printer. It helps the corners from curling up under the heat, and it helps with just general adherence to the bed, wider surface area, more space to grip, less likely to detach and cause a failure. But these particular prints did fail for whatever reason. You can see on the tops there, they failed to print the logos completely, almost like they had holes. So I went back and I retooled my slicer to use 0.12 millimeter thickness, and I disabled the support structure. I don't know if you can see way in those holes, the tops of them have just a slight bit of overhang and sag. That has to do with the fact that it didn't have supports in there as it printed, and I didn't have the printer set to bridge that gap fast enough, so there's a little bit that drooled down in there, but all in all, that's not the worst thing in the world. This is the guy's branding. Again, a lot of people do that on Thingiverse to mark their things. M18 is the battery size, and you can see the Milwaukee brand came out quite well in this one. It's not perfect, it's not flawless. There is some issues around the K with it, but I mean, by comparison to either, not filling in completely or just generally looking terrible, this is definitely the clear winner. So I think I'll print a couple more like these. Use a little bit more red filament, toss these in the sample bin, and get rid of them. This is a thing I printed. It's a helping hands device for soldering. You slot your wires in here, and you stick them together. You can twist them together if you'd like to, and then you come at them with the soldering iron and the solder itself. If you have a helping hand station with the alligator clips, that works as well. I do not have one, so I printed this, and it seems to work pretty adequately. The V grooves are pretty good. They accommodate wires in pretty large thicknesses. I don't have any problems with 22 gauge all the way down to like 16 gauge. It's pretty alright. I haven't tried anything 14 or 12 gauge in it, but I'd imagine you probably could get some of these larger ends to hold that if you needed to. All in all, I really like this for something that just took a couple of hours and came off my printer from a 1 kilogram or a spool that was like $12. That's pretty decent, and you could probably print like at least 20 or 30 of these off of a spool. So it's a pretty effective value versus buying those alligator clips. And this is one of the cooler things I've printed in a while. This is a collectible Doom guy, is what he's called, from the video game Doom 2016. These are the parts that I haven't quite adhered yet to him. So those are all the pieces. This is actually just a keeper tool, a spacer. He articulates, and his joints were these dome-shaped items with a peg on the end of them, and so that allowed you to keep the spacing on them when you glued them in, so that the the pivot joints would rotate. So he's got 6 points of articulation here. He's got his head, which turns just a little bit. He's got his arms, which also will come up. His hands, so they will turn all the way around if you want them to go all the way around. And his legs are one unit from his body, so they actually do turn, but they just turn together. Not opposable joints in the knees or anything. So he's a pretty cool little guy. He was printed in several parts. His chest cavity and his back cavity are a piece each. His legs, that is one whole piece up to his belt. His hands are split halves. You can see that there probably, and glued together. And then his head is obviously two pieces. I ran out of white PLA for his helmet. I had enough to print the rest of his items, but I did not have enough to print his helmet. It was a considerable amount, so I printed it in gray. I will be spraying this in primer coat, and then probably painting the details on him, and then clear coating him just to make him look a little bit better eventually. But he calls for 7 of these screws to attach him. The website on Thingiverse claimed that they modeled the design to fit M3 M3 size 13 millimeter length screws and self tappers. I'm in the US. We don't have a lot of metric options, especially in hardware stores near me, that go all the way down to M3. So what I ended up finding was M4 screws that are 5/8 of an inch long, and I picked up 7 of them. They're machine thread screws, sheet metal screws I should say, that are self-tapping as well. So they went in just fine. It was a little hectic. But you take your time and you rock them back and forth, or if you want to pre-drill them out a little bit, you could probably do that. I just rocked them back and forth to heat up the screw, and as it went in, it expanded the plastic, made it a little softer, and cut the grooves that it needed. So it comes with a little chainsaw here. It came printed in 2 halves, glues together. I imagine he's supposed to be able to hold this in some regard. I'm not exactly sure how to accomplish that, whether it's by pressure fitting it in there, or if it's just you're supposed to glue it in. I'd imagine you probably glue it. I have not, I don't really know what I'm going to do with that yet, but it's there in case I decide to use it as a display. For his front pouches, they need to glue on to his belt here and here. I have not done that yet because I'm going to wait till after I primer coat him and then base coat him the main color, and then I'll glue his pieces on and then probably finish his touch-up pieces. And then these go on his back like this, there and there, and then the 3 pouch goes right in the middle. And that is the Doom guy. One other thing that was kind of cool about this particular design was that in the game, when you pick him up, a sound activates and plays a little guitar riff, and it included links to hardware that you could buy and then program and then also wire together to do that. So when you would pick him up in the game, you would hear that guitar riff, which is pretty cool. There is a speaker mounted in his face right here. It's an 8 ohm, half a watt speaker. The hardware Arduino board that runs it, the sound, stores the sound file and plays it, is mounted to the back of his skull. I routed the wire around. It's kind of hollowed out in here. And then there's 4 holes up underneath his neck. I don't know if you can see that very well. And those just channel the sound down and out of the helmet. There are some 6 little slots here to allow a little extra sound. But this whole thing acts as a bit of a resonance chamber. It's actually quite loud. in person by comparison to how loud it was sitting open in an open air baffle system, laying on a desk. So I think whoever designed that probably put some thought into the acoustic value of the helmet and the actual space in there, which was a nice touch. The coin cell battery is a 2032 battery, lithium ion, and it mounts to the back side of his back here, slots in to here, and then there is this is a 3D printed plunger that goes all the way through, and then the back of his chest has a momentary tack switch, which just activates that sound when you press it. And that's the Doom guy. I think it'll be a lot of fun. This one was also branded on the bottom. You can see the guy who modeled it out of the game. His signature is there, and then the person who designed it split it into pieces and then put the pegs in there so that it articulates and moves. Branded the other foot. I'm really pleased with the way this turned out. I think it's a fun piece, and I have plenty of coin cell batteries and tack switches to print more because you've got to buy them in bulk. So if anybody wants one, I could probably come up with the stuff to do one for you. And then this is one of the last things that I've printed. It's taken several days to print this. I know it doesn't look like much, but this is a testament to the tolerances of that new Ender 3 printer that were considerably lacking in my old printer bot, specifically mine, my laser cut model. This is a vise, a fully 3D printed vise. It's not got any glue on it. It's not got any screws holding it together. Even the retention pins here, all 7 of them, are 3D printed. They're printed with a noticeable arc and a bend in them so that when you insert them, they stretch out and then they latch over the groove on the end as a keep. So you would take something in there like a toothpick, push that down, and then pull the pin all the way out of it. So this is 2 halves for the frame. Here there's a left half and a right half. It's got vice jaw covers that I printed in white. The main gears, these 2 main gears are free. They printed by themselves. They're just held in place because they are grooved on the inside to match the all thread, and the keeper holds them, keeps them from bouncing back and forth. The handle here runs straight through and drives obviously the main gears, and rotates it. And the all thread and the actual vice jaw itself is one solid piece, and it's grooved on the back there to ride in that channel. And there's a little bit of play to it, but I mean, for what it is and what it does, I'm just absolutely beside myself at how well it came out. There is some difficulty threading it, especially once the all thread rods get out behind the turn crank here. Once they limit your ability to make, half turn rotations or full turn rotations or whatever it is, you're limited to like little quarters here. But I found that if you want to speed things up, you can just grab the main gear and just rake it with your thumb, and that seems to do it quite a bit quicker. But I love this thing, so much so that I would probably print like 6 or 8 more of these and keep them around. I use them to clamp pieces as I solder. The grooves are perfect for those PCBs to be lined up in there and clamp them so that you can get at them and they don't move. It's much easier to put your hand on this vise with your soldering iron hand than it is to try to use a finger on the board and then hold the part and then also the soldering iron and the solder and not burn the crap out of yourself. So I love this in conjunction with the helper hands or the wire keepers, if you will, whatever. is really, really great for the stuff that I do. So that's what I've been doing to keep myself busy. I'll probably spend most of the night tonight looking on Thingiverse for new designs to check out, and you know, save some things and see what I can get myself printed tomorrow and the rest of the week next week. But I hope to make this a pretty regular thing, especially during lockdown. It seems to keep me out of trouble, and it's fun. One of these days I'll have to construct a shelf to display all of these neat things that I have printed. So, stay out of trouble, stay healthy, and find something to keep you sane.